A major winter storm will bring more snow, ice, and a significant round of severe weather to the United States as we go into this weekend, followed by the arrival of the polar vortex into next week with the coldest temperatures of the season for some areas. And we're looking at the potential for another winter storm as the polar vortex comes in later next week. So, a lot to get into here with the forecast. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe to the channel down below. Follow along with all my detailed, accurate weather forecast videos. Also, like the video by giving it a thumbs up, especially if you do find it informative, and share this video with friends, family, and on social media. I definitely appreciate it. So, getting into the forecast, let's look at our temperatures here and our temperature anomalies today. The coldest of the air over here across the central United States. A little bit of some warm air over here to the eastern seaboard, but that will quickly go by the wayside as we go into the weekend. We'll show you that here shortly. Let's look at our highs here this afternoon in the central U.S. This is where the coldest of the air is, really up here into the upper Midwest and the Ag Belt. We're seeing temperatures for highs today into the single digits, mostly above zero. And our wind chills this afternoon, by the way, in these areas were below zero. So I guess it really feels like below zero. If you step outside with the wind out there, up into portions of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, northern Illinois, and much of the eastern Dakotas this afternoon. Temperatures as we start the day tomorrow on Friday, they're going to be pretty cold over here as well. We're going to see temperatures in the single digits down into the lower Midwest, Ohio Valley, single digits to possibly lower teens below zero up here across North Dakota, northern Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Wind chills will be much colder than that. We're talking 10 to 20 degrees below zero to start your Friday, so make sure to bundle up here across the northern U.S. How about the western U.S.? High temperatures today, coldest to the north, warmest to the south. You're down in the Phoenix area. We're seeing highs around 70 today. Into the Montana, for example, central Idaho or western Wyoming, especially in those higher elevations, we saw highs in the single digits above zero, and our wind chills this afternoon were kind of around zero, maybe slightly below zero in the higher elevations. Now, as we go into the day there on Friday, here are your lows. Not too shabby for most of the West, except for up here in northeastern Montana. Temperatures at or around zero. Wind chills up here could be as cold as 20 below zero as we go into tomorrow morning. Finally, the eastern U.S. High temperatures, not too bad over here either. Coldest areas up into northern Maine, where we saw highs in the mid-teens. And then across the I-95 corridor down in the mid-Atlantic, like the Delmarva, we saw highs around 40 degrees this afternoon. Now, as we stretch this along and go into your Friday, low temperatures in the single digits, mostly above zero across portions of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, upstate New York. Also the single digit lows with teens as well mixed in there across the Ohio Valley, 30s and 40s further south. And into the Florida, obviously you can understand it's Florida. Yes, we're going to see lows around 60 degrees. Looking at the wind chills tomorrow morning, we're definitely seeing some wind chills below zero, but not as strong as the upper Midwest, but still 5 below to 10 below here across portions of the Northeast. Let's track our next winter storm traversing across the country, and you can see as we go through the evening hours, very heavy snow across the Sierras, heavy rains all across coastal Texas up into coastal Oregon. So we're talking some pretty heavy rainfall of an inch per hour or so, and that will really continue through your Friday morning commute, your Friday afternoon commute, and then by the time we get to Saturday morning, we're going to shut off the taps here across the west, and we're going to see more of that moisture and that apparent storm system move further east into the Rockies here, so we get rid of the moisture across the west coast. Before it's all said and done, we're talking about some pretty heavy rainfall here for coastal California, the foothill regions of northern, central, southern California, and yes, there is a moderate risk for flash flooding here in the Los Angeles metro area. And this could lead to localized up to 6 inches worth of rainfall here, but widespread 2 to 4 inches across most of California. Now, if you are in the higher elevations, it's cold enough for snow. The Sierra Mountains going to get 2 to as much as 5 feet worth of snow here, and this could cause a little bit of some avalanche problems across the higher elevations. So be mindful of that if you are heading out for any snowboarding activities or any skiing activities across the Sierras going into the weekend, because avalanches will be possible. Now let's look at the weekend ahead for our temperature anomalies. It's going to pull part of that polar vortex down in the United States as we go into the weekend, and that is going to set up our next big storm system. You can see the warm air out ahead of it. We got the cold front and low pressure storm track, and then we have the cold air on the back side. And with this system, it's going to be a pretty strong one. Here we go. Low pressure system in the Texas Panhandle there Saturday morning. It's going to move southeast toward East Texas and Arkansas. and then, grab that Gulf moisture, right? It's going to make it very unstable down here near the Gulf Coast for severe weather, and then it's going to strengthen. And a strengthening system either means A, we get heavy snow and an ice storm, or we get a severe weather. And I think we have all three on the table as we go into the weekend. First, looking here at the storm system, what the radar could look like Saturday morning. We already have rain here in the mid-Mississippi Valley. This could be heavy rain, and this is an area that has seen a lot of rainfall over the past 1 to 2 weeks, and we're just going to be continuing to rain over saturated soils. Notice it just continues to train over the same areas here. We do have a transition zone of some ice. I think the icing threat is appearing to be more significant across the Northeast, but we could have some icing around St. Louis, Indianapolis, up toward Toledo. Otherwise, some snow showers. It's not going to be a complete snow event across Chicago. There will be some breaks in here with dry air. Arctic air is dry air after all. We're going to draw some of that in, but definitely seeing some snow showers. I think this snowstorm really matures once it crosses towards Toronto, Montreal, and up here into upstate New York, northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and Maine. That's where the heaviest snow, we could be talking up to 2-3 inches per hour snowfall rates up there once we get to Sunday evening. Ice threat, very concerning from Maine, coastal Maine, down here into southern New Hampshire near Concord, southern Vermont into western Massachusetts, and central and eastern New York. That's where the icing threat could be the most significant. Otherwise, you're closer to the coast. We're going to see more rainfall from this system as we go through the weekend. Here's the snowfall accumulations we're expecting. Again, lighter to the west toward the upper Midwest, the lower Midwest, the Ohio Valley, just simply because a lot of dry air getting drawn into the system. Previously, like this last system, we saw a lot of dry air. That's where we're going to see snowfall more limited, but still a few inches, anywhere from 2 to 4 inches really across most of Wisconsin, Iowa, northern Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. Picking up a little bit in Michigan, especially the upper peninsula, but especially even the northern lower peninsula of Michigan. We're definitely seeing the potential for 6 to 10 inches. And then up in southeastern Canada, Toronto to Montreal, 1 to 2 feet of snow here. And we could see up to 2 feet of snow in upstate New York, northern portions of Vermont there. And if we look at the Northeast in general, even up here into northern Maine, yes, northern Maine, folks, between now and Tuesday, February 18th, could see 40 inches worth of snow with a bona fide snowstorm across this region. The closer you get towards the coast, the lower the snow amounts will be. And that's where we're going to see the icing threat here across the Northeast. That could pick up potentially a quarter, localized half an inch of ice. So ice storm warnings may be possible in parts of the Northeast and New England, all the way down into Pennsylvania as we go through the weekend. So something to keep an eye on there. Not only could this cause hazardous travel conditions, but also could put some ice on the power lines, and that could weigh that down, and scattered to numerous power outages would be possible if this scenario panned out. Now on the warm side, equally as concerning, if not more concerning, will be the significant severe weather. There is an upgrade to a level 3 out of 5 enhanced risk in the orange here from the Storm Prediction Center, Norman, Oklahoma, updating this outlook earlier on today. That does include much of north central Louisiana, southeast Arkansas, much of Mississippi there, especially central Mississippi, and then into western Alabama. But you notice even the dark green, that's a level 1 out of 5 marginal risk. That extends all the way up into northern Kentucky, including the Lexington, Richmond area, Bowling Green, even up here into places like Knoxville in Tennessee. So this is a large swath of potential severe weather as we go into the day on Saturday. The Storm Prediction Center will continue to refine their outlooks in the coming days. Let's put together the setup here. We have a lot of CAPE, convective available potential energy. The higher the number, the higher the chance for thunderstorms and severe weather. Notice in the green and yellow here, we're talking over 2,000 joules per kilogram, really centering across East Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi, lesser extent further to the east just because we lose a little bit of the daytime heating. But this is concerning. Look at the low-level wind shear. This is the 850 millibar low-level jet, and it really typically starts to strengthen towards sunset and thereafter. Notice it's already strong Saturday afternoon, over 65 knots there, and then it strengthens like it naturally does after dark. And notice it goes over 80 knots as it progresses east through Mississippi there and into Alabama. And that is concerning because that could lead to some tornado genesis with some of these thunderstorms. So Saturday morning, we got isolated storms here from West Tennessee near Memphis, all the way down here into areas north and west of Jackson, Mississippi, Shreveport, Monroe, maybe even as far west as Tyler, Texas. This could be concerning already for some isolated severe storms, mainly with hail. Now, as we go through the day, this is midday Saturday, Initially, a heavy rain and flash flooding threat will be a concern from Texarkana up toward Little Rock, Memphis, Jackson, Tennessee, and up there toward Bowling Green and Lexington, Kentucky, and as the storms just continue to train over the same areas. But here comes the cold front as we go into Saturday late afternoon. That's going to sweep the storm threat further east a little quicker, become more progressive. That's where we're going to see supercell thunderstorms with a squall line, and those could be the ones that pose the risk for nocturnal tornadoes. Some of them could be strong tornadoes, EF2 or stronger variety, large hail, quarter size or larger, and widespread damaging winds, 60 to 70 miles an hour here or stronger at times as we go into Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening. Notice as we get to Sunday morning, those storms start to dwindle. The further east they go into Alabama, Georgia, and northwestern Florida. Now, let's look at the flash flooding and heavy rainfall threat, because I am actually pretty concerned about this here, and it's growing and uptrending as well over the past few model cycles. Looking at the last 2 weeks, okay, the last 14 days for precipitation anomalies, anywhere you see the dark green, we are already 1 to 2 inches ahead of schedule. Wherever you see the blues, which covers most of the state, by the way, of Kentucky, southern West Virginia, much of central and western Virginia, and down into parts of Dixie Alley here in sporadic areas, that is 3 to 5 inches ahead of schedule of what we should typically see during that 2-week period. And here is the rainfall we're going to see. Again, we're looking at all this rain really starting in earnest Saturday morning or even Friday overnight and going all the way through the day Saturday and into Sunday. We don't even shut off the moisture until later Sunday evening, and that could give us some pretty heavy rainfall here, especially in those red shaded colors from Arkansas into northern Mississippi, much of western and middle Tennessee, into much of the bluegrass state of Kentucky, into southern Ohio, and into portions of West Virginia. That's where we could see a widespread 2 to 4 inches of rain with isolated amounts pushing 6, 7, or 8 inches in this corridor here, most notably into the Kentucky region. Now, looking at beyond this storm system, the polar vortex will arrive next week, and this is going to be right in our backyard. The main lobe of the polar vortex over Hudson Bay and southeastern Canada. We have cross-polar flow from Canada into the United States. Watch as we go through next week. It's going to kind of park itself in southeastern Canada, but by later next week, it's going to retreat as one, right? The polar vortex is split right now. It's going to retreat back to the north, and that means we're going to start to warm up as we get closer to the following Monday, on Monday, February 24th. But let's look at our temperature anomalies as we go into next week. Wherever you see these pinks and purples, I mean, we're talking seriously cold weather, 40 to 50 degrees below normal, where we should see as we go into Monday. That just spreads south as we go into Tuesday, Wednesday. Look at that, reaching all the way down to the Rio Grande here with temperature anomalies as much as 60 degrees below the norm, and it spreads east, and it spreads east quick as we go into later next week on the backside of our storm here. And then by the time we get to the following weekend and then the following week, by Monday, February 24th, yes, still cold in the east, but notice as that polar vortex that we showed you retreats north, that warmer, mild Pacific air is going to start to translate west to east across the U.S. by then. So that'll feel like summer, right? Once we get to that time frame. Now let's look here at the winter storm that could come with that. Now this is drier air. This is a little bit lower confidence. Arctic air brings dry air, and it's a little bit hard to tell exactly how far south some of that drier air will go, and it depends, because this could actually cut off a little bit of the snowfall accumulations on the northern periphery of where you see the snow here, but higher confidence potentially of snow maybe a little bit further south. Will it reach Texas or Oklahoma remains to be seen, but definitely seeing the snow line drop a little bit further south next week. This could be a bigger winter storm for the Delmarva, the I-95 corridor, and coastal New England as we go into later next week, the 19th, 20th, and 21st of February. And overall, looking at the ensemble guidance, here's the GFS, the American ensemble guidance, kind of showing that, kind of hinting some of that in the darker green, the darker grays, the blues out there. And then looking at the European ensemble guidance, much more of a big signal for a winter storm across the Delmarva, Mid-Atlantic, up there into coastal portions of Northeast, and then more of a snow line moving further south as well toward the central and southern plains. But again, how far south the snow line gets is uncertain right now, and again, how dry the northern periphery of the storm is uncertain. That could cut down on some of these snow totals in places like Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. So we're going to keep an open mind about this storm as we go into next week. We'll refine the details and the the coming days. I know that's a lot of information. Yes, I know. It's a lot of information, a lot to take in. We got winter storms with heavy snow and ice. We got a winter storm with severe weather and flash flooding. The whole thing. And we have cold air. So there's a lot to talk about. We're going to continue to keep you guys updated. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Follow along with all my detailed, accurate weather breakdowns by subscribing. Turn on post notifications so you're notified for future videos and live streams on this channel. Like the video, give it a thumbs up, especially if you did enjoy the forecast and found it informative. And share this video with friends, family, and on social media. If you want to drop a comment down below, you can. I do appreciate all the questions, and I'll answer as many as I can after the video. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Thursday out there.